Our brain is an incredible organ. It's actually the organ that takes the connection between the mind and our body. The brain is part of the body, although sometimes we see in Western science people mix the brain with the mind. It's a 3.5-pound mass, which is incredible, and uses up to 2 times the energy requirement of the rest of the body. And what I'd like to talk to you about is we can actually nourish our brain if we have the basic components of what we can do with our dietary regimen. So when we look at nourishing the brain, we can look at the macro and micronutrients. The macronutrients being the proteins, carbohydrates, fats, and the micronutrients being the vitamins and minerals. So let's look at it. What feeds our brain the most? Glucose. Glucose is a 6-carbon sugar that's derived from carbohydrates. Now, we have good carbohydrates for the brain and what we would call bad carbohydrates in the brain. And you've heard a lot of this on the news already. But the good carbohydrates are the complex carbohydrates, ones that we get from the grains that were made in nature, not genetically modified here. They supply glucose to the brain, and the brain feeds on glucose. In fact, what's so interesting about the brain also, it's the only organ in the body that doesn't store energy. And that's why we need a constant infusion of glucose. That doesn't mean you can go out and snack all day and eat all day because you need to keep supplying your brain. But it means to pay attention to what your brain needs to concentrate and have the energy that it needs. Now, the next macronutrient we can look at are the proteins. And proteins are pretty fascinating because they supply the connections. And what do I mean by that? Well, proteins in the diet are broken down to amino acids. And we've all heard of tryptophan, which is an amino acid, and tyrosine. So there's an old saying, we could either be frustrated and fatigued, or we can be focused and calm. Well, those amino acids, and I'm just giving you 2. There are many amino acids, but these are essential, and they will actually help you with your mood, focus, and clarity. So it's important to pay attention to proteins. How much protein do we need? How much don't we need? And the third component, which is fascinating, is fat. Now, fat, you know, we always say you have a fat head because your brain is 60 to 70% made up of fats. And those fats feed the sheaths, the membranes in the brain that allow those electric currents to take place. So the amino acids that I just spoke about will come in and provide the electricity. Well, they need something to run through. And fat actually supports your brain and nourishes your brain. However, like the carbohydrates, we can talk about the good fats and the bad fats. And we all have heard that trans fats are not good. They actually will block the transmission in the brain. Whereas polyunsaturated fats are the best. And the most famous is the DHA. And DHA is an essential fat. And that essential fat actually helps with the integrity of the membranes. So when the amino acids come, and they want, or the neurotransmitters that are made from the amino acids come, they need to have a solid membrane that's healthy. Well, the DHA, the essential fat, actually supports those membranes, those receptor sites, so that that current can take place. Which leads me then to the micronutrients. In order for proteins and fats and carbohydrates to really do their work, they need to be broken down. And vitamins and minerals serve as what we call coenzymes. And those coenzymes, from a biochemical perspective, allow the transformation of the molecule to happen. Let's look at the 2 most famous or the most popular neurotransmitters that we're talking about, serotonin and dopamine. Now, serotonin is made abundantly in your gut. However, the gut serotonin is not going to go through the blood-brain barrier. So the brain itself, within the neuron itself, has to make that serotonin. And what does it use? It uses the micronutrients. For example, B6. The B vitamins are one of my favorite because they help with that transformation to happen. And that vitamin actually works and allows tryptophan to convert to serotonin. And the other neurotransmitter is the dopamine. Dopamine from tyrosine. That's more of a stimulating effect. That helps us focus and also maintain a good mood. That also needs B6. So when we're designing our own diet, we have to consider, what is it that we want to achieve? So I spoke about 2 neurotransmitters. I spoke about serotonin from tryptophan. That comes from your carbohydrates, and your protein from dopamine. But here's the catch. In order for an amino acid to get to the brain, it has one lane to travel. And what that means is there's a competition. There's one doorway in which it's going to activate or calm you. So let's look at these two. We have a carbohydrate meal, or we have a pure protein meal. Because when carbohydrates are ingested, what happens is insulin is released. When insulin is released, it takes the tyrosine, which is your dopamine precursor, and it'll put it away into storage. So that's why you get sleepy with carbohydrates. However, if you were just having a protein meal, let's say you had something like cottage cheese for breakfast or eggs, just no carbohydrate with that, the chances are dopamine is going to go to the brain and you're going to be more alert. So when designing your diet, we pay attention. We pay attention to, are you having trouble? When do you need to be alert? And when do you need to be calm, relaxed, and sleepy? So you're not going to be eating a high-protein meal at night when you want to get ready to retire. So when designing the diet, you want to have the consideration of what is it that you want to achieve? What are your goals? And where are you? Assess yourself where you are and what you need to do. Just simple rules are paying attention to the composition of your diet. How much fat do we need? How much carbohydrate we need? And how much protein we need? From an allopathic model, that's always addressed. However, if we take in more of the ayurvedic model, depending on someone's constitution, are you someone who needs to be more calming, or someone needs to be more focused? We pay attention to the actual individual when we do something like that. And it's quite easy once you get the gist of it and can design your own diet accordingly.